You're not supposed to enjoy pain. That's what we've been told. Pain is something to avoid, something to flee from. But what if I told you that some people don't just endure pain, they weaponize it? They extract power from it. They master it, manipulate it, and use it as a tool to dominate others. And the most disturbing part, we often don't even notice it happening. This journey we're about to take isn't easy. It's not comfortable. But if you stay with me, you'll see human nature in a way you've never seen before. We are going to explore one of the darkest, most misunderstood psychological strategies, using pain, your own or others, as a path to power. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand these people. You'll start to understand yourself in a way that might be uncomfortable, but undeniably liberating. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." But what if that meaning becomes corrupted? What if people begin to find not healing, but control in the suffering? What if pain becomes not a wound, but a weapon? Let's start with the raw truth. Pain is one of the most ancient currencies of power. Before kingdoms and politics, before corporations or social media, pain was influence. If you could inflict it, you could control. If you could endure it, you could ascend. Think of the ancient rituals, rites of passage where boys walked through fire, where warriors were scarred to prove endurance. Pain was proof of strength. But in modern times, something more psychological has emerged. People began to understand that they could manipulate others by managing pain, both their own and that of those around them. Have you ever met someone who seems to thrive in chaos? Someone who appears calm when others are panicking, or who always brings the conversation back to their suffering? They might not even know it, but they're using pain to shift the emotional balance. When someone controls the emotional temperature of a room through their trauma, through their silence, through their tears, they are exercising power. It may not be malicious. It may not even be conscious, but it is real. This is where we start to confront an uncomfortable paradox. Not all victims are powerless, and not all power is oppressive in the traditional sense. Sometimes, power comes from the ability to evoke guilt, sympathy, or fear in others. The person who carries their pain like a badge can often silence a room more effectively than any threat. Why? Because we as humans are wired to respond to suffering. But here's the twist. The more sensitive we are to pain, the easier we are to control.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Ask yourself, have you ever made a decision not because it was right, but because you didn't want to hurt someone who was already hurting? That's the psychology at work, and it's not inherently evil. But it becomes dangerous when pain is no longer a wound to heal, but a lever to pull, a game piece, a bargaining chip. There's a darker side to this as well. Some people don't just use their own pain. They cause pain in others subtly, intentionally, to destabilize them, to gain the upper hand. This is the manipulator archetype. They know how to make others feel just enough discomfort to become unsure, insecure, obedient. They use criticism, silence, passive aggression, or even praise at just the right moment to maintain control. And often, we don't see it happening because our attention is focused on the pain, not the power. Michel Foucault, the philosopher of power dynamics, said, "Where there is power, there is resistance." But what he didn't explicitly say is that sometimes the resistance is what creates the power. When someone resists pain, endures it, or even embraces it, they become unpredictable. And unpredictability is a form of power because it disrupts the expected flow of fear. If I can't control what hurts you, then I can't control you. But if you show me that you can turn your suffering into strength, you've just reversed the current. So what does this mean for us? For you? For how you move through the world? It means we have to look deeper. When someone is dominating a conversation through their pain, are they seeking healing or are they seeking leverage? When someone is consistently drawing attention to their suffering, is it a call for connection or a cry for control? And when you share your pain, do you do it to be seen or to be obeyed? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary. The truth is, many of us have used pain this way, even if we didn't mean to. We've learned that pain gets attention, pain gets apologies, pain can make people stay. And when we're afraid of being abandoned, pain becomes our last resort. We say, "Look at what you did to me." We say, "You can't leave me like this." We don't mean to manipulate, but we do, because we're desperate. Because we're hurting, because no one taught us a better way. So what is a better way? First, we must learn to separate pain from identity. You are not your trauma. You are not your suffering. Your pain is real, but it is not your power. Your power is what you choose to do with that pain. Do you use it to grow, to understand, to connect? Or do you use it to guilt, to control, to dominate? Second, we must become aware of the dynamics around us. Watch how people use pain in your life. Is there someone who always brings the mood down with their suffering? Is there someone who makes you feel guilty for being happy? Is there someone who weaponizes their past to keep you from leaving? These are signs, not of evil but of unresolved pain being used as a tool. And finally, we must ask ourselves the hardest question of all. What am I using my pain for? Is it to shield myself, to control others, to avoid responsibility? Or am I using it as a bridge to deeper understanding, compassion, and strength? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is what we're doing here, dragging our unconscious use of pain into the light. Because only then can we choose differently. Let's go deeper. There's a psychological term for this behavior: coercive vulnerability. It's when vulnerability is used not to create connection, but to create obligation. It's subtle, but powerful. Someone shares a deep emotional wound, and suddenly you feel responsible. You feel like you owe them kindness, patience, even obedience. And if you fail to give it, they imply that you're heartless. This is not true vulnerability. This is emotional manipulation through pain. We have to reclaim vulnerability as a path to truth, not control. True vulnerability says, "Here's my pain. I don't expect you to fix it. I just want to be seen." False vulnerability says, "Here is my pain, and now you owe me." Which one do you practice? Which one do you fall for? And what about those who inflict pain to gain power? They are often the most insecure. They believe that if others are weak, they will be strong. They don't know how to feel powerful through love, so they choose fear. In relationships, they criticize instead of encourage. In workplaces, they humiliate instead of mentor. In friendships, they withhold instead of give. Why? Because they've learned that pain is the fastest way to control lead, but it never lasts. Because fear breeds rebellion, and domination breeds isolation. The person who rules through pain eventually finds themselves alone, respected perhaps, but never loved. So here's the question I want you to sit with. Is it better to be feared or to be free? Fear gives you control for a time, but freedom gives you peace, and only one of those can last. Let's end this part with a thought experiment. Imagine two people. One has suffered deeply, but has turned their pain into empathy. They move through the world with quiet strength. The other has suffered equally, but uses that pain to manipulate, dominate, and control. They crave attention, obedience, and submission. Which one has more power? Not in the moment, not in the eyes of the crowd, but in the long run, in the soul. Which one are you becoming? Let's return to our thought experiment. Two individuals, each marked by pain. One has taken that pain and transmuted it into empathy, resilience, and quiet strength. The other, equally wounded, has turned their suffering into a weapon, a method of control, a tool to manipulate the emotions and decisions of others. If we measure power by external influence, obedience, submission, or attention, it may seem that the manipulator holds the upper hand. But if we measure power in terms of inner peace, genuine connection, and moral clarity, the one who heals rather than harms is infinitely more powerful. This is where we must begin to redefine power, not as the ability to dominate or coerce, but as the ability to remain rooted in truth no matter what storms we've endured. True power is presence. It is the capacity to sit with your own pain without projecting it onto others. It is the strength to witness the pain of those around you without being pulled into their emotional gravity and without trying to control their healing process. Most people are not present. Most are unconsciously ruled by their pain, either avoiding it or using it as a social currency. But both of these coping strategies are rooted in fear. When we avoid our pain, we become disconnected from our own humanity. When we weaponize it, we disconnect from the humanity of others. In both cases, we lose ourselves and we lose our capacity to love, and to be loved in a way that is clean, honest, and free from manipulation. When someone uses pain to control others, even subtly, they are outsourcing their healing. They are refusing to carry the weight of their own emotional burden and instead cast it onto the shoulders of those around them. This happens in relationships, families, friendships, workplaces, and even in spiritual communities. It is not always malicious. In fact, most people who do this are unaware. But unawareness does not erase the impact. The person who constantly brings up their pain to guilt others into staying, the leader who invokes their suffering to silence criticism, the friend who uses their past to avoid accountability, these are all forms of psychological control. And the cost of this control is authenticity. Because when you're using pain as a manipulation tool, you're no longer seeking truth or healing, you're seeking leverage. The paradox is that those who hurt others the most often feel the most powerless inside. They don't trust that their needs will be met without coercion. They don't believe that love will come if it's not earned through sympathy or fear. So they create cycles of dependency, guilt, and obligation. They dominate conversations, steer emotions, and shift blame, not because they are strong, but because they are terrified of being abandoned, unseen, or unloved. They confuse control with connection, but control is not love. It is fear wearing the mask of intimacy, and the relationships it creates are always unstable, always shallow, always tinged with resentment. We must also challenge a dangerous cultural assumption that suffering automatically makes someone wise. It doesn't. Suffering is a crucible. It can burn you into something beautiful, or it can scorch your soul into bitterness and vengeance. What you do with your pain is what defines you. Some people emerge from trauma with deeper compassion, clarity, and purpose. Others emerge with sharpened manipulation tactics, a desire for revenge, and a hunger to dominate so they never feel powerless again. Both may carry the same scars, but only one has transformed those scars into something sacred. The other is still bleeding, still seeking to make others bleed so they won't feel so alone in their suffering. So the question is not, have you suffered? The question is, what has your suffering made of you? This is the question we must ask ourselves every time we feel tempted to use our past as a way to control the present. Every time we want someone to feel guilty, to comply, to give us something we haven't earned through truth and integrity, we must ask, am I using my pain to connect, or am I using it to control? Because intention matters. Sharing pain for the sake of connection is vulnerability. Sharing pain to gain power is manipulation. One opens the heart. The other closes it. To protect ourselves from being controlled by those who weaponize pain, we must develop emotional clarity. Recognize the signs: excessive guilt-tripping emotional blackmail, the constant centering of their suffering in every conversation, the subtle ways they make you responsible for their emotional state. These are not cries for help, they are attempts to dominate. And while compassion is essential, compassion without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. You are not responsible for healing someone who refuses to take ownership of their pain. You are not unkind for walking away from emotional manipulation. Sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do for yourself, and even for them. The healing path requires deep self-awareness. The more unresolved pain you carry within you, the more susceptible you are to this kind of manipulation. Because when we haven't faced our own suffering, we confuse guilt for empathy. We confuse control for care. We confuse silence for peace. But when you've done the work, when you've sat with your shadows, felt your grief, confronted your rage, and reparented your wounds, you become unshakable. You can hold space for another's pain without collapsing into it or being controlled by it. You can say no without guilt. You can love without losing yourself. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is precisely what we are doing, bringing unconscious patterns into the light. Because awareness is the first step to liberation. When you see how pain has shaped your behavior, your relationships, your sense of self, you gain the power to choose differently. You are no longer a puppet of your past. You become the author of your future. And that is the kind of power that no one can take from you. Let's speak about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about saying that what happened was okay. It's not about letting the other person off the hook. It's about releasing yourself from the hook. It's about reclaiming your energy from the past. When you forgive, not to reconcile, not to validate, but to liberate, you are saying, you no longer get to live rent-free in my nervous system. That is true emotional sovereignty. But be careful. Some people will use your forgiveness as an invitation to continue harming you. They will test your boundaries. They will expect your compassion to translate into continued tolerance of dysfunction. This is not forgiveness. This is codependency, and you must learn to distinguish between the two. So what's the alternative to using pain for power? It's the cultivation of presence. Presence is the ability to be with what is without needing to change it, manipulate it, or use it. Presence is radical honesty with yourself and others. It's the ability to hold space for both joy and sorrow, for clarity and confusion, for love and for loss. Presence is the rarest and most powerful form of leadership in the world. It doesn't demand. It doesn't coerce. It simply is. And in that being, it heals. Imagine what the world would look like if more people chose presence over power. If we stopped using our wounds as weapons and started using them as pathways into deeper understanding. What if we saw pain not as a tool to gain submission, but as a sacred teacher? What if every moment of suffering became an invitation to grow not over others, but with others? That is the world we must begin to imagine. And it begins with you. So I leave you with one final question, and I ask you not to answer it quickly. Sit with it. Feel it in your body. Let it disturb you if it must. If no one ever pitied you, feared you, or obeyed you because of your pain would, you still know who you are. If the answer is no, don't run from that realization. Stay with it. Let it show you where your identity has been enmeshed with your wounds. Let it show you where your ego has confused pain for purpose. Because the self that exists beneath the pain, the self that is whole, free, and untouched by manipulation, is waiting for you. That self doesn't need to control others. It doesn't need to dominate or deceive. It just is, and it is enough. Do not settle for a life where your power is built on the tears of others. Do not chase validation through your suffering. You are more than what was done to you. You are more than the attention your pain can generate. You are more than the control you can extract from sympathy or fear. You are a soul capable of alchemy. Turn your pain into presence. Turn your wounds into wisdom. Turn your suffering into strength, not the kind that scares others, but the kind that sets them free. Because when you finally stop using pain to gain power, you'll discover the kind of power that nothing, not even pain, can take away.